coffee poured, with candles lit. With this chant, we summon Crip.
Is he here?
DJ. He's not here.
That was a long 3 minutes.
It was a long 3 minutes. Hearthstone Grandmasters continues as we're going to get with our first match with justsaiyan versus Zalae. And we're going to start things off pretty nice and fiery here as we have two players who are ready to go with a lot of hard-hitting Hearthstone action. Two druids being banned, but the warrior and the warlock being banned here.
Yeah, you're getting a little glimpse into some of the thought process behind the players. We've seen many different strategies for protected bans with similar lineups across the board for a lot of players throughout the weekend this weekend. And you're kind of getting to see what decks players respect the most, and it differs. Obviously, Saiyan and Zalae think that Druid is very well positioned, but at the same time, we see some players protect Shaman and think that that's the best deck in the metagame. Some players protect Priest, think that that's the best deck in the metagame. Some players protect Warrior and think that that's the best deck in the metagame. It's kind of a crazy just meta altogether right now, especially when you factor in a new format that players only have 1 week of experience with. So first game is going to be Warrior for Saiyan versus the Druid versus Zalae. And Saiyan playing the just straight up control warrior with the taunt package. Zalae topping out at King Ferris, no Chef Nomi. And a Power of the Wild thrown in there. 2 Ferocious Hell, 1 Bees. I'm saying these cards because these are the cards that tend to be cut the most in some other lists. Cut or included.
Yeah. Not too much unlike how cut Zalae is.
Oh, yeah.
That jawline. Staring off into the distance, wondering about whether or not he wants to hold on to anything besides the Untapped Potential and the Worthy Expedition. I think those are 2 great cards to have. Zephrys is a good card to close out the game, particularly if you need to get more damage versus the Warrior or if you fall too far behind. Zalae ends up throwing away the Worthy Expedition. Seems like Worthy Expedition could also have that similar usage to Zephrys, where you can pick the right card that you want as the game continues to develop. Crystal Merchant being a very nice pickup, though.
We've kind of debated back and forth over the past couple days, and I know the other casters have as well, about what's favored in this matchup, whether it's the Control Warrior or the Druid. I tend to lean towards the Control Warrior, especially considering that Saiyan's playing the Double Brawl, 1 Plague of Wrath. You only have a limited amount of waves of threats as the Druid, especially if you're not playing Chef Nomi. You have, you know, that first wave, which usually consists of Oasis Surgers. You have the second wave, which is usually King Ferris. The third wave, which is the fluked King Ferris. And then a little bit of stuff in between. As long as you can account for all those waves, the Druid will kind of just run out of stuff. And it's up to you to try and utilize your resources in the mid stages of the game wisely by not being too preemptive with Brawl or too preemptive with Plague of Wrath to make sure you have the necessary tools to deal with the later game pushes. One of the perfect examples of, I think, great Warrior play for this matchup, look back at Yarla's match, his Warrior versus Druid from either yesterday or Friday, which I think that he spaced out his resources perfectly. He utilized his life total and his other removal cards like Warpath, Shield Slam, Restless Mummies, to be able to buy himself enough time to where he made sure he had answers to the waves later on in the game. And I thought that it was brilliantly done. And I think that if you play like that, it's very hard for the Druid to win, especially without Nomi.
Yes, it's about lining up the removal like you said. I also really like that Saiyan prioritized removing the Crystal Merchant. I remember playing against a handful of Druids myself and thinking, wow, how do they just have all of the right answers? Wow, they activate Zephrys. And I hovered over a deck that said like 9 cards left. And I thought about how Crystal Merchant drew like 3 or 4 cards because I was busy. I was playing a quest shaman. I was busy ramping up my own quest and I couldn't answer the 4 health immediately. And how core that is for Druid to be able to get their strategy going. That card draw helps bridge the gap because then they'll have the right answers once their quest is online. So I like that Saiyan prioritized removing it. I think it is a very crucial, unsung hero, if you will, of the Quest Druid decks.
Yeah, very much so. We are suffering from a few spectator issues again. Today, you may have seen that it took a while for the spectator window to come up for Zalae's perspective. We apologize for that. We've been trying to find a solution for it over the past couple days, but haven't found one that's consistent. So we'll keep you updated on that front. But
unacceptable, TJ.
Well, me and you are in this together, Dan. We're both the captains. We both go down with the ship.
Well, I don't know what I was expecting. But, yeah, we'll get those things fixed momentarily. Let's go ahead and focus on what Zalae's hand is here, because Saiyan's hand is fairly straightforward. It's 2 ofs of all the reactive cards, 2 Dynamatics, 2 Brawls, 2 Warpaths. For Zalae, is this a hero power and pass because he wants to finish his quest? Is he going to play the War Druid Loti? If you do play Loti, what's the correct form of Loti?
I don't know if I necessarily like Loti because of how powerful it is. It's got 4 choices, 4 choices. So it obviously has the absolute most benefit when played after the quest. It's a 4/6 taunt with Rush, Poisonous, and +1 spell damage. Otherwise, though, in this situation, he would have been just playing a hero power and pass. But, I mean, there's so many removal options that Saiyan has for even the Poisonous. It's Warpath or Dynamatic. He could even just not play a minion here and force us to be on board, which would eventually die to a Warpath, which he's going to use at some point anyway.
Yeah, this indicates to me that Zalae is trying to free up his hand a little bit. He is going to be playing Nourish next turn, most likely, given that it is a slow matchup. Had he not played this Loti, he would have been holding 8 cards at the beginning of his turn, which means that Nourish would put him to full hand, and he doesn't have a guarantee that he'll be able to play a card. He would have to draw an Innervate. He would have to draw like a Power of the Wild or a Wrath and be able to use it, and there's no guarantee of any of those things. So, in an effort to ensure that he spaces out his hand correctly, I think that was a preparation for the Nourish. Now, the chances are he is going to draw something he can play. So a lot of people might look at this and say, oh, well, Zalae just like wasted his Loti. I wouldn't just be so quick to say that.
Dan, he wasted his Loti.
I wouldn't be so quick to say that.
I'm being quick to say it. Yeah, I understand.
Why wouldn't it be you?
Well, because, yeah, no, I get it. Because if you look at the cards that he would draw in his deck that would cost less than 2 mana or less, they're pretty limited. It'd be a Nubisat Defender, which he's drawn. That's the one that you are, one of the only good ones. Crystal Merchant, a little bit awkward, because that can be some late game draw. Where the Expedition just puts another choose one card back in your hand, so you're back at the same problem. Innervate you don't want to waste, and then Wrath would draw another card and replace itself. So all of those things, I guess, is fine to play it if you're trying to prevent that setup.
Well, now he knows about the threat of Dynamatic, and he plays a Nubisat Defender. Dynamatic's going to destroy everything, so I think Zalae is going to hold on to his cards. Plus, you know, don't give your opponent the satisfaction of knowing that you played the Loti to try to anticipate the full hand. It obscures the information, because now Saiyan has to account for a little bit wider of a range. When you see the Defender, you narrow down possibilities. Less cards means it's easier to predict what your opponent is holding. Saiyan has the coin, has the Amani Warbear originally lined up in case his opponent played like a Defender and he didn't want to Dynamatic, but now can just load up a little bit more board tension. 3 Oasis, or 3 Hidden Oases.
Yeah, it's great for King Ferris. Just because Hidden Oasis is not a card that you're going to use very early on.
Yes.
And he has the
Floop.
He has the Floop already. So smart from Zalae to try and get up to King Ferris as quick as possible. And Caterer's choices too can... Wow, that's +3 spell damage on board.
Yes, there's an Archmage, and there's a Cosmic Anomaly. For reference, that's 3/5 of a Malagos. Not great for representation. We're working on equality over the years, but for now, it'll make do.
Yeah.
I mean, Swipe does, what, 8 or 7/4 rather now?
Yeah, 7 and 4. Saiyan, if you notice in the mulligan, actually kept a Brawl, knowing how important it is in this matchup and how a warrior loses this matchup. They lose if they miss any piece of removal on one of the waves of threats from the Druid, because Druid has so many ways to capitalize on a big board. They have Cenarius, they have Power of the Wild. If there's obviously spell damage in that wave with War Druid Lodi, perhaps, then you're never going to stick a board.
Ferris survived? Mayoris survived? Wow, okay. 5/5 reasonable stats. I mean, Saiyan didn't really have high expectations. Almost all of those minions were around that annoying health range, right? Like just being outside the removal. And it being a 5 health minion means that maybe Dynamatic can end up removing it. Zalae with the 2-time. Back-to-back. Stats on the board. Hogger not able to generate any board presence here. But that's okay.
Yeah, not that it really matters too much.
Because there's a second Brawl.
Yeah. Second Brawl. Also, Saiyan has a Plague of Rats still in his deck, plus both Warpaths in his hand. So,
right. The Warpath is an interesting one. People might look at this and assume that there might be some order miscalculation, but keep in mind, Zalae only had 5 spells in the hand. Had he known Starfall was the next card in the deck.
Yeah, absolutely. If he plays Ferocious Howl and doesn't get a spell, then he just has one less minion on him. But
yes.
So, makes sense to me.
Yep. Lady in White survives.
I'm probably dumping Shield Slam here, if only because there's no armor gain cards in hand.
That's no way to treat a lady.
And you're not guaranteed to have armor anytime in the near future.
She got dressed up and everything.
Dan, I hate to break it to you, but she's already dead.
Lady in White's been dead for 7 years.
Probably more than that.
No, but there was so much we had left to do and share together, TJ.
I'm pretty sure...
Don't talk about my waifu as if it's in the past.
Pretty sure Lady in White died when you were like 14. Assuming she's a character from the original Warcraft.
Yeah.
But that's okay, Dan.
You'll really not.
You'll get over it soon. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Wave number 3.
Yeah, you know, in some ways, this is even scarier than the one that he was presenting before because of the threat of Cenarius to come out and really make it tall and wide. But Saiyan does have that Warpath ready to go, so he can soften things up here. Or, alternatively, he can just start getting value off of the cards that are in his hand that are fairly powerful, like Avani Warbear, shut down the 3/5s, still make it difficult for Zalae to chew through. The one thing that I do like about the Warpaths is that it takes off the immediate power and removes the threat of Cenarius or Power of the Wild. And you do have 2 Warpaths, which makes it trickier to use since Warpaths with the Echo effect does have a lot of redundancy with each other. So I think I like this Warpath. And it's kind of like what you're saying. Zalae is trying to layer his threats wave by wave. And, you know, with his threats being taken down turn after turn, eventually there's going to be a moment where Zalae has a slowdown period. And that's when Saiyan can utilize things like Arpegadillo.
Yep.
Or he can just immediately rush onto the board with Avani Warbear. Zalae doesn't really have much going on. His best play is Hidden Oasis or Oasis Surger.
Yeah, I like the Hidden Oasis. Just 2 6s is very threatening. If you look at just the threats that Zalae has left in his deck, it's very limited. He has an Oasis Surger and a Cenarius. War Druid Lodi is in there too, but he's not necessarily threatening by himself. He's more threatening when you factor in some of the support that you can put behind him with all of your choose one spells, having +1 spell damage and double dipping from that +1 spell damage.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's not much going for him. So Zalae needs to maximize every single minion, and if he plays Oasis Surger here, it means he doesn't play Hidden Oasis, and his 6/6 on board is likely to die. So that's why I like protecting it, because it protects his very valuable resource on board.
I agree. Trees stick together. Plus, the trees in the Zalae pose, if you really think about it. Squatting down and flexing. Saiyan picks up the Restless Mummy.
It's a nice way to kind of buy time. I honestly would not hate Armageddon plus the Restless Mummy here. I think that that's a very reasonable line of play, considering that Saiyan knows that that Zalae's pretty much out of significant threat.
Right, he's developing 1 minion turn. That is something that Warrior can keep up with for the rest of the game.
Yep.
Hope. Well, that's not something that's easily kept up with.
Well, I mean, 2 more softens it up. That's a thing you have to remember. It's just Saiyan, again, needs to really try and take as much power off the board each turn. Although a Plague of Wrath at any point in this game, a Plague of Wrath draw would be devastating for Zalae, just because Plague of Wrath would be saved for one of the last big board pushes.
Okay, so the way we can do Cenarius, or you can do Surger with bees and set up for even better Cenarius next turn. Another alternative is just to use Starfall as direct removal, but I think given that Saiyan still has been holding a few cards, and you know that Armageddon buffed a few things with animation, gives it some something to think about if Starfall could be used very impactfully on, say, 2 Morden to get more than just 5 damage out.
Yeah.
Or 7 damage. I like the setup. Makes Cenarius look very scary. That's the one redeeming factor of bees. I think bees by itself perfectly fine in a lot of decks. I think it fits more in the traditional token druid deck. I think it fits well in other classes like Paladin, Warlock, even Shaman. I feel like it's a little awkward in this deck. I am cutting bees from a lot of my Crush druids. By a lot of them, I mean the one that I had in my collection.
Whoa. Second Dynamatic here. Could be massive if it hits the Oasis Surger twice. Oh, man.
Yeah, this was a statistical likelihood. I mean, just the way, the order of when it went down made it look like Saiyan got very fortunate.
Well, I think the statistical likelihood is actually to hit the Oasis Surger and the Hidden Oasis the same amount of times. So it would leave both at 2 health. Right? Because they both are the same chance to hit.
Yeah, it sounds right when you say it like.
One's at 6 health, one's at 5 health, and they're both.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds right.
So I think this is actually a really good outcome for Saiyan.
Yeah. All right. Well, when you put phrases like that, it's hard to disagree. Zalae picks up the Innervate and the Power of the Wild. That means that Cenarius Innervate Power of the Wild is possible next turn. This turn, he can get value off that Hidden Oasis number 3. This is something that Saiyan isn't thinking about. It's truly living up to its name, TJ.
It is.
It's truly hidden.
And it is an Oasis for Zalae. I wonder if I think the question is, do you want to value, if you're planning on playing Hidden Oasis, do you value trade and then Hidden Oasis? Or do you value damage? I guess neither. I really like the Cenarius plus Power of the Wild play last turn. The thought from Zalae might be, well, if he has Plague of Wrath. What?
Next turn?
Next turn. Yeah, sorry, next turn.
Last turn. Yeah. Oh, wow. Super Collider. Wait, hold on. He doesn't have that much life. He has 17.
Yeah, but you can float around pretty low life totals as long as you're confident that you can get through. But I wouldn't be surprised if Saiyan just tries to grab board here while protecting his life total as much as possible.
He can do a lot more than try. He's He's going to forcefully wrestle it away, War Bear style.
Yeah. There is like Snip Snap, and then Amani
Okay.
War Bear. That's like the most efficient way, or maybe not even the most efficient, but the way that gives you the most board.
Would you rather have the War Bear be kind of weak, or would you rather just have the 1/1s and have a very powerful 7/5?
In most cases, you want to kind of spread the health as much as possible if the minions are going to be above 2. But if not, then you want to have basically all in on one minion to make it harder for Starfall to hit. In this case, Saiyan is not that upset by seeing Starfall because it would be 5 of Zalae's mana, which is a big expenditure at this point, considering that Zalae's running out of time to build a board. And 2, if you see Starfall, then that means 2 more is much more impactful on the board because there's one less removal spell that can help deal with it.
Well, Wrath is a neat pickup.
Quite neat.
Quite neat. Wrath and Swipe cleans up the board. Then it's up to Saiyan to develop, and then you have Oasis Surger, Zephyrus, Cenarius, Hidden Oasis to push through the rest of the game here.
Is it enough?
It might be. It might be, because the only cards remaining, it looks like, is Crystal Merchant in the deck that's a minion. I'm looking through the rest of the deck list here. I don't see anything else that stands out to me.
Yeah, it's a Crystal Merchant, a Starfall, and
a Wrath.
And a Wrath. Correct.
And Saiyan also pretty low on cards. 2 Warden.
Yeah.
Nice as a back pocket option. 2 Warden is really powerful development here. Interesting that Saiyan chooses the 3/6 instead of the 5/8 that was buffed.
I like this.
You do?
Yeah, because if Zalae needs to remove these. If he's going to remove them, then he's going to kill the smaller ones instead of the bigger ones.
Does he, though? Because if you know that Oasis Surger is in the hand, and you have 5/8, that just makes Oasis Surger feel like it can't have impact with half the reason why you play the card, which is Rush.
Well, it could give you to a point where if you play the big ones, he's Zephyrus and Twisting Nethers when you have little resources left.
Okay, that's fair.
And then next turn, he Oasis Surgers. See, now if he Zephyruses and picks up removal for these, then he gets punished by the big ones.
I mean, Tyrion seems really powerful here, too.
Yeah.
And that means that Saiyan's ability to challenge the Tyrion is significantly weakened.
Sure.
Saiyan now has the Omega Assembly. Definitely worth looking inside that assembly line. Oh, a little bit of a damage here, which is really useful. The Skater Bot has that rush, can pop the Divine Shield, then Restless Mummy can trade in.
Yeah.
That was a really nice Omega Assembly, even though at first glance, it looks kind of meh.
I wonder.
Looking at alternatives here for Saiyan after the fault. The thing about the Restless Mummy and the Skater Bot is that he doesn't really develop much behind it.
What now?
Another alternative you can consider is Super Collider. Interesting. Okay, so using the Warpath here.
Warpath is a pretty big resource.
It is, given that you know that Oasis Surger and Scenarios are a thing, but so
especially since it's also the activator for Plague of Wrath.
Yes, the Plague of Wrath activation is a really good point, but he doesn't have that card. It's a 9% chance that he draws it next turn.
Yeah.
Zalae, also, the Warpath does weaken his 3/6s to get hit by an Ashbringer. Although
Or Oasis Surger. Like, he could push 5 here because the Oasis Surgers.
Also, when Zephyrus is used the way it is, Zalae doesn't have to worry too much about direct damage anymore. So if he did end up using Super Collider, he wouldn't have... he'd be at 8 less life right now because he wouldn't have hero powered. He also wouldn't be taking 6 damage. So it'd be at 12. But he still has 2 Mordants, and then he would have Super Collider developed.
And both swipes are gone.
And both swipes are gone.
So there would be 0 direct damage in the deck because he's also seen... Oh, wait, no. There's choose one card left, but there's not a choose one card that deals direct damage to the face.
Ah, wait.
Is there?
I don't think so, but I think Saiyan also realized that because of that threat of Ashbringer, and and because he has Oasis Surger, Starfall would have pushed through it anyways.
Yeah.
So it actually didn't matter if he protected his Tomb Warden.
Oh, Omega Devastator.
So this is a cleanup. Omega Devastator plus Super Collider.
Yeah.
In fact, he doesn't have to do that. He can still Omega Devastator and then Faithful. Well, actually, Faithful Loon doesn't give the rush. It's Skater Body.
No.
Yeah, see, that was the thing about the Warpath usage that you were kind of bringing up. That feels awkward.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Plague of Wrath is not in the hand, and there's 10 cards left, so it's only 1 in 11 to draw it. But Warpath by itself is just such a crucial resource, considering that he knew that an Oasis Searcher was left. And even, let's say you stick a minion on board, it even lets you get through the 2 Treant from Cenarius. And trade something in, for instance.
Right.
So, like in this instance, if Zalae were to play Cenarius, without he could quadruple Warpath, trade in Omega Devastator, and that'd be game. I mean, it still seems relatively likely that Saiyan finds himself out of this. Cenarius is the last threat, plus Ashbringer, and he's got 2 massive Tomb Wardens. Because of the 8 health on the Tomb Warden in hand, even double Starfall doesn't get through it, which is awkward for Zalae, to say the least.
Sort of. You're getting the minions on the board.
Well, one will die.
So Saiyan can... so him being at 5 health versus 1 health does not matter in his mind. Because there's no direct damage from hand. He's only worried about the Ashbringer swing.
So he's got to just play around double Starfall, which is you can swing. You swing the you can Super Collider into one of the Treants. It brings the Cenarius down to a 5/4. The other Treant dies from the 5/6. You play Tomb Warden. Double Starfall means that each Tomb Warden's at 1 health, which means that Ashbringer goes into 1 and the Cenarius goes into other, killing it. And you follow up with the smaller Tomb Warden plus armor.
What if Zalae doesn't double Starfall? What if he Starfall Wraths? Kills the other Tomb Warden. I guess you have the second Tomb Warden number 2.
Starfall Wrath still means that he needs multiple attacks to get through. Because one is, they're still alive at 1 health. Right.
Wait, no, TJ. The second Starfall will also deal 2 damage to the other minions on the right.
Oh, you're right. So that's game.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was...
You're forgetting the 2 damage AoE.
I'm forgetting the 2 damage AoE.
7 damage.
I was only considering 1 2 damage AoE. Yeah, you're right. That's my mistake. It seemed like the best setup, though. But with double Starfall in hand, he just wasn't able to get there.
Just barely, though. I mean, Saiyan was 1 Tomb Warden away from locking out Zalae.
Yeah.
And I think the only turn of which that I can really think about in reflection about whether or not Saiyan
Warpath
could
turn?
have won was the Warpath turn. The because he took a turn to set up Super Collider.
Yeah.
He did gain a little bit of life.
Yep.
But had he been able to set up Super Collider earlier, that might have given him a chance to play Tomb Warden, the second Tomb Warden that's out of his hand. Because he didn't have to take that turn to play Super Collider. Granted, that turn that he played Super Collider, he actually ended up playing the Omega Devastator, which was an important tempo swing.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go back and look at it. But if I were to look at one play specifically that game to review, it would be that one.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I know it's after game 1, so we need to go to break. So I'll talk about it once we get back. But especially since I was considering the Starfall, and Sam was probably considering how do I best win around Starfall, we can go back and even look at more plays before that, considering he knew that information. So we'll see.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to go into game number 2 between justsaiyan versus Zalae. Stay tuned.
The shadows are rising again. darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There's surely scorching deserts, adventure, monster narcissism. High stakes think annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave. Evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save. Oh, no.
My name is Paul Nemeth, aka Zalae, and you can find me on Twitter at ZalaeHS, and more importantly, my stream, twitch.tv/ZalaeHS. Tune in, twitch.tv/ZalaeHS. A day in my life, I wake up when I feel like it, then I go to the gym when I feel like it, after that I stream when I feel like it, and then after that, I try and do something productive, and it doesn't always work. My personal goals for this year, I prefer to make short-term goals. So I try to live each day as best I can and make good decisions in the moment. And I don't focus too much on long-term goals because that can be complicated. And I think it's good to keep things simple and focus on what's important in the here and now. You know, it would be pretty cool if I could be first place in the Grandmasters system, but to be completely honest, I don't expect that. Jusstsaiyan's a little bigger than me. Yeah, second place. That seems like a realistic goal. I could probably finish second place in the Grandmasters program. And I feel like second place it's a nice, comfortable spot for me. I'm into second place.
My name is David Shan. In the game, I go by justsaiyan. My username is just kind of a pun, right? But over the years, I think it's grown to mean a lot more to me. Playing Hearthstone for 4 to 5 years, I've probably won like 35,000 games, which means I've lost like 30,000 games. So definitely going back and forth and picking up after every loss. And that's kind of what the anime embodies, right? Is like, you lose a fight, you almost die, and then you come back stronger. So being in Grandmasters, especially coming to the summit and everything, it feels like you have just a wide, diverse range of amazing players. And now it's, at least at the start here, it feels like we have a new responsibility to represent Hearthstone, to represent, you know, how fun and competitive that this game can be to the best that we can. So for me, the X factor has to be, I think, just I'm good at finding an edge where other players aren't exactly looking, and then trying to drive as much as I can into that so that I have an even bigger edge at the end of the day. Personal goals for the year: get into the 2 spots from North America to make it to the grand finals this year. I mean, I'm saying this like right after Worlds, but I'm just dying to get back in there, you know?
Saiyan gonna stay on the warrior. Zalae turning to the shaman. It's a battle between 2 members of the Horde. It's gonna be Garrosh Hellscream versus Thrall. Does Thrall have a last name?
Farseer, I think.
Is it Thrall Farseer?
Yeah.
Okay. So so everyone that's a Farseer is of the same clan or family?
Yes.
Got it.
Same with Hellscream.
That makes sense. I think that's what last names tend to mean, that they belong of the same tribe or kinsmanship.
Yeah. Does everyone with the last name Cho?
Yes, we are all in fact related.
See, it works for every last name.
But yes, unironically, we are related in some kind of distant blood.
Same.
Actually, we're kind of related in a very distant blood.
How?
We both descended from
Cho's?
humans.
Oh, okay.
We're both descended from a powerful dynasty of China.
Very distant. Millions upon millions of years. But yes, I am related to both Bernie and the Colonel. So Definitely a couple empires
Wow.
that I have claim to.
So you get a lifetime worth of double doubles.
And free healthcare? I don't know.
That's an amazing package. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you, TJ.
Yeah, I also have access to the secret recipe.
The sauce. It's a family. It's a
herb-
family heirloom.
I know the herbs and spices, Dan.
Wow. So TJ, for my wedding gift, I'd like to get this recipe.
I can make some for you, but I can't tell you the recipe.
Okay, well, I'll reverse engineer it. I will taste it and then figure out the ingredients.
You can marry into the family.
Do you have siblings?
I do.
You have...
2 sisters.
Oh, great. Double indeed. So he just plays his quest and gets up. Oh, wait, reposition himself. Did he just take a lap around the couch? Ah, my workout's done for the day. Quest on 1, Ethereum Rover on 1, Evil Totem on 2. If you ask Shaman players, they feel like the matchup against Warrior is pretty good if you're able to get an early game start. There's a lot of matchups that you play against Warrior that even if you get a fast start, you feel like, oh, they just have to have one card like Dynamatic.
Yep.
And I lose. But Shaman has so much game plan, and the fact that Zalae has Barista Lynchin already in hand gives him the ability to craft a pretty good recipe for success.
That's right.
And I gotta say, TJ, I've played a lot of the Shaman recently in the past 48 hours. It's been the deck that I've been jamming the most games with. And the more I play this deck, the more I've come to respect the best players at it, because I think Quest Shaman is one of those decks where you place it in the hands of a Grandmaster player versus an average Legend player versus the average Hearthstone Grandmaster caster, and you get widely different results.
Yes. Obviously, the average Grandmaster's caster gets rank 1 Legend and doesn't lose a game. And then the other categories are terrible at the deck. So...
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Totemic Might.
Well, yeah, you could buff the totem.
Though, if I'm ever offered Farsight in this deck, I usually take it because of the off chance that you get Shutterwalk.
Get Walk. Yeah.
Because if you have a cheap Shutterwalk that can allow you to Hero Power and Shutterwalk, it is just the nut. It's essentially unbeatable, especially against Warrior. So, I don't know.
Can hold me.
That's just my thoughts, especially since this Totemic Might gets killed by Restless Mummy. Though he didn't see a Town Crier, so it's much less likely that he has Restless Mummy.
Yeah, it was a cute play. I wouldn't say it was something that works out a lot of the time, but some of the time it does.
Yeah.
And if Zalae gets another totem, another chance for a Cobalt Lackey, another chance for an Ethereal Lackey.
Yeah.
I take those odds.
Yeah, and Zalae didn't pay off, but don't blame him for going for the play.
Be a lot more Hearthstone play. It's not going to be defined based off of whether or not you keep the evil totem. Oh,
Yeah.
Sand taking a lap around his backdrop.
Yep. Let's see if he comes back from the other side.
Those Hearthstone gamers really take, our breaks very seriously.
I wonder.
Well. Oh, he got his pillow.
Ah, yes. He knows that he's in for
You
a
like my invention?
pretty long and hardly fought battle.
It's a potentially very long matchup. It does somewhat depend on how Shaman's game plan comes together. Because of the variations of lackeys that you get, and even just, of course, on top of the normal order if you draw your cards, and because of the way Shutterwalk can pan out, this matchup can go in a few different directions. It can go into a tempo-oriented one, which is, a traditional mid-range deck, right? You build up your advantages, you mutate and evolve, and you use your battle cries to buff the health and attack of certain things, pressure the warrior out of the game, drain them of resources. You play value-oriented things where you just constantly keep putting more stuff in your hand, and warrior just can't keep up with all of their brawls. We've seen, for example, the other day, brawling up with a board of like 3 or 4 Shaman minions, and they just had like 6 cards, 7 cards ready to go right afterwards. And then, of course, what I'm starting to believe is the optimal way to play the deck, which is transitioning into a combo-oriented finish with the Heart of Vernal and Cobalt Lackey, Life Drinkers,
Barista.
Barista Lynch in, maybe even throw in the Weaponized Wasp because it's also 6 damage.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, I mean, I even was thinking about, because I was playing a budget version on a different server, because I like to climb also on Europe and Asia Pacific. Yeah, that's a sense of the meta in different regions. I didn't have, like, Barista Lynch in, so I was like, well, what can I have to substitute for it? Do I put in, like, Spring Rocket? So I have, like, extra burst that they're not expecting for, because I can't afford Barista Lynch on that account. And I played it with a couple games, and it won. It got me over the hump. And I think it's not supposed to show that Spring Rocket's a good card. It's the idea is that when you streamline the game plan to have this flexibility, whether you want to control the board or you want to go for burst, the Quest Shaman has a lot of room for exploration, which I think is why people love the deck.
Yeah, it's one of the most played decks currently in pretty much all ranks, nearly all ranks. And not surprised, considering the points that you gave.
It's a fun deck. It's a very fun deck, and I don't think people will disagree. Even the people that aren't super fans.
Battle cries are fun. And if you get double the battle cries, you have double the fun.
All right, I'm gonna go to our publicly available data in HS Replay. Patch has been out, what, 7 days? Not even.
6 days.
Okay.
A little over 6 days.
Most popular deck.
Because it was rolled out at 11 a.m. on Monday, but it was actually delayed in some cases if you didn't restart your client or if you were on mobile. I actually had a 5-mana Luna's Pocket Galaxy played against me at 1:15 p.m.
Oh, jeez.
last Monday.
Okay.
Not fun. Congratulations to that guy.
Well, so, you know, Highlander Hunter is still actually the most popular deck.
Interesting. Highlander Hunter didn't
Across all ranks.
Didn't get any weaker. It's the same exact deck, but the decks that it preyed on got less popular, which means that it's going to get pushed out of the metagame in other ways. So kind of a weird situation that happened with that, but one that we're also used to in Hearthstone.
So let's take a little inventory check here. Zalae has combo cards with the Life Drinker and Barista Lynchin and Weaponized Wasp. You do want to keep the Lackey for that purpose, but his quest is also not done either. And it's not like you necessarily want to just throw out the Ooze. I think
Life Drinker is also a card that I don't know if you want to just throw out.
Yeah, the reason why I like the Life Drinker over the Weaponized Wasp is because you don't need the Lackey requirement. If you think about it in the context of combining it with a Lackey, Wasp does the same damage, the same mana cost as a Life Drinker.
I'm mostly thinking of specifically Shutterwalk.
Oh yeah, Shutterwalk's also really good too.
And it's not that if you double up a Valor Cry, it doesn't happen twice with Shutterwalk. It happens once. It just happens once for each minion you play, no matter how many times you double it. But with Barista, Life Drinker can be a big deal because that's just 3 extra direct damage that you get if you are able to bounce it back in some way. Now, it's not that big as a deal, 3 damage, but having guaranteed damage loaded up in Shutterwalk allows you to plan accordingly. And Weaponized Wasp, obviously, as well, is not the best to double up with Shutterwalk because it won't just happen. Even if you had the Lackey on the board initially with Weaponized Wasps and you got the damage, unless you have a Lackey on board when you play Shutterwalk, Weaponized Wasp will not go off. So it's a little bit inconsistent. But this matchup is not all about the Shutterwalk, and that's why Zalae's playing the Life Drinker here. Shutterwalk's a nice bonus at the end of the game, but it's all about how you get to that point.
This hurts. 10 damage onto a minion. Zalae fully acknowledging the power of our Megadillo. Had the option of not using the Lightning Bolt here. He could have just taken the Earthshock, which I think in his mind, Zalae recognizes that his next turn is also very weak. He has only one really proactive card in Giggling Inventor, and you know, if he ends up playing the Earthshock, playing Giggling Inventor in the next turn is not really what you want to do. You most likely want to hero power with it. So if he ends up Lightning Bolting, he has 6 mana available, or 7 mana rather. Rain of Toads is perfectly fine to use. Saiyan, on the other hand, He just got the buff off the Omegadillo. There's 6 health on the board. Dynamatic doesn't seem particularly very good. Safeguard might be just a good option to get stuff in the way.
Yeah, it's also 6/7.
Yeah, it's like a Boulder Fist Ogre.
That's right. Oh, Weaponized Wasp.
So here's another thing to start factoring in, which is how much should Saiyan be playing, or sorry, how much should Zalae be playing for the board?
That's a good question. You will not be able to push chip damage if you don't play for the board. You'll fall behind. You'll eventually fall behind. And the chip damage is really important because it forces removal out of your opponent because like 4 damage that they take continuously will get them in range of, you know, Lackeys plus Weaponized Wasp plus Life Trigger and Shadow Walk. I wouldn't hate a Barista here. He's got perfect hand space for it since he would get back 2 copies of Ethereal Lackey and 2 copies of Weaponized Wasp, which not only synergize with each other, but direct damage plus potentially more direct damage with Ethereal Lackey. You're not always guaranteed like the nuts Barista in this matchup. He's used a couple of his Lackey cards with Sludge Slurper and 1 Evil Totem. So Soul's Evil Caber and the other Sludge Slurper. Like the ideal scenario is the Hero Power 3 Kobold Lackeys, Barista Lynch, and next turn Hero Power 6 Kobold Lackeys, right? That's 36 damage over 2 turns, which is very hard to play around. But that's like wishful thinking.
Yeah,
This one's just a very high value Barista that gives you a lot of options and a lot of flexibility and also potentially a lot of damage.
Agreed. I think this is an extremely high value Barista. That's 4 spells from the Ethereal Lackey.
Plus 12 damage from the Weaponized Wasps.
Right.
Because you can, you know, combo those together. Hand size will become an issue because each Ethereal Lackey is 1 card expended but 2 cards gained.
An added benefit too is that by the minions not dying on the board, Saiyan has to develop a little slower. It's like he does have the restriction of trying not to play more than 3 minions because mind control tech is very standard across all the shamans. Even so much to the point where I'm thinking about cutting a mind control deck from my shaman because I feel like people respect it a little too much on ladder, and therefore I don't need to draw it. I can draw a higher impact card.
People respect it even more in competitive play when it's open deck lists. But sometimes that makes it even worse, right? Or sorry, no, that makes it even opposite. Makes it even better, right? Because if they respect it way too much, which we've seen, they're developing less onto the board potentially every turn, which just the threat of it can make your entire gameplay stronger.
That gives you the ability to squeeze in more greed. Like, you know, if you're playing a tournament, that's when you can put in the Acidic Swampos. That's when you can put in other like cards that are trying to help you, like a 2nd copy of Giggling Inventor. Some people put in Swamp King Hagatha, which I think is overkill. But yeah, like there's a lot of other Battlecry things that can have high impact. Giggle once, giggle twice.
Yeah, like this play because if Saiyan wants to Warpath or Brawl, he's also killing away his, killing his own minions. Also, because Zalae only had 9 mana available that turn, it might have made his turns awkward if he tried to go for some Ethereal Lackey plays if he didn't get any spells that he could dump. And honestly, you don't want spells that you can dump unless you are sure that they're going to have a high impact. And also, he doesn't necessarily know where these Weaponized Wasps want to go yet. He can just throw them at face, but is that wasted damage if you're not clearing the board? Is it wasted damage if you're only putting some of the damage into minions?
Right.
So this is just a strong, in a nutshell play. And Zalae can evaluate next turn what he wants to do with 1 additional mana. So,
well said, TJ. Sorry you get to hear me gulping down tea.
Slurping it up.
Oh yeah. You just start seeing Sludge Slurpers and I start getting thirsty.
You like tea, don't you?
Can you give me the tea? TJ.
It was an Office reference. Do you remember that episode?
Where
it's the false rumor episode.
Where Michael just says a bunch of random stuff about everybody, but accidentally guesses that Pam's pregnant.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
One of my favorites.
Every episode that you quote from The Office seems to be your favorite.
I just love The Office a lot.
So, Plague of Murlocs. Me too. Plague of Murlocs is a really interesting one, given that Zalae can like deal with big boards from your opponent. They like play 2 Mordens and you just play Murlocs and just destroy them.
Yeah. Funnily enough, he can also
Big Bad Voodoo on his giggling
Inventor.
On his giggling inventor.
Yeah.
Yes. On the Giggle Boy.
Plague of Murlocs can also increase the power of his board right now.
It's true.
But I think Big Bad Voodoo is probably better, and then you can just trade in the Giggler.
Yeah, it's a mutate that surprisingly works better in this scenario because you get to trade afterwards. Finds the Tortolan Pilgrim, but hey, I mean, 2/1 to a 5/5.
Yeah,
We'll take it.
It's a 2-mana 5/5. That's essentially what it is in this situation.
You're half expecting a Warpath to come out of some kind. 2 Morden just gets stuff in the way. And now Saiyan, what he's afraid of is what are the spells discovered, and he knows that Bloodlust is a thing. He knows that the Stormbringer is a thing. Stormbringer can be responded to with the Brawl.
Same with Bloodlust.
Well, Bloodlust isn't the exact. Brawl tends to miss each other. Where, like, the Bloodlust already has been committed. And the Brawl, like... The Bloodlust is a temporary buff for 1 turn.
Ah, okay, I see. I see
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yep. But you can see how just annoying this is for Saiyan, because he's not advancing his own game plan. I guess his own game plan is survive, but it takes so much effort to survive, and then your job isn't done, right? You have to clear every single thing, and then survive all the damage, survive the Shutterwalk.
That's right. The warriors cry out. How will we survive? I mean, there's a Plague of Murlocs right now, TJ. What do you think about that?
I guess.
I like it as opposed to giving up my board. Reasonable, and that works fairly well with the Sandstorm Elemental.
Yeah, this would force a removal, which I think is the big thing. It also dumps a card from hand.
Which is fairly important.
Fairly important.
If he wants to go for Ethereal Lackey or Evil Cable Rat next turn. Because the idea is that Saiyan will most likely clear the board if he needs to play some of these cheaper things. I like the Sandstorm Elemental in this spot, given that he only has 1 spot on the board. Zalae doing his due diligence just to make sure that that's the right play. No Murlocs get drawn from Saiyan's deck.
Surprise, surprise.
I think Saiyan, in a way, is annoyed that the Murlocs destroyed his Armegadilloed 2 Morden, but at the same time, I think he's somewhat relieved to see the spells all used from hand, there, except for the Rain of Toads on the far left.
Yeah.
So the less range that you have to worry about, usually the better you sit as a high-level Hearthstone player.
True. Once you see the spells that are randomly generated and, of course, the lackeys, you start to breathe a sigh of relief because it means that you can accurately predict how much damage can come from hand.
Saiyan might not be happy with the current state of things, so he might end up using Omega Assembly to see what else he could pick up. Dynamatic should help clean up some of this board, but it doesn't do enough by itself. Brawl's going to be used here. This is exactly what Zalae is hoping to see. In a sense that, if you really think about it, this was all created from 1 Giggling Inventor that got a double Battle Cry, and 1 Ethereal Lackey, or half of an Ethereal Lackey that he was able to generate from the spell. Sure, he threw in a couple of other things in the mix, right? The Big Bag Voodoo, the Sandstorm Elemental, but those things aren't super important. Big boards.
And this is just a game of emptying the hand, right? He just needs to make room for all this value that he's drawn. Evil Cable Rat, Ethereal Lackey, plus a lot of additional resource generating cards still left in the deck. He has both Novice Engineers, he has the Sludge Slurper, Evil Totem, another Evil Cable Rat. So a lot of Lackey generation, which could also lead to resource generation. So he just needs to get rid of some of these other cards. And with a Mind Control Tech played and another one in hand, may put a situation in Zalae's hands that allows him to get value off the second one if Saiyan doesn't respect number 2. But at this point, Warrior tends to not really go for huge wide boards outside of, for example, after you've played Dr. Boom at Genius and you microbots on an empty board to play a thing. So, not the toughest thing in the world to play around. But Saiyans kind of running out of stuff.
Yeah. He's got 3 snip snaps. No Dr. Boom.
Not yet.
That's the other part of the song. Where are the heroes? Where's my hero card? Dr. Boom being the bottom is definitely problematic if Saiyan wants to answer this board. Sold the Murloc. That's interesting.
Interesting. Week 2 Warpath still, but could be okay. Wind Fury, you don't tend to play many massive minions. Maybe a Bog Sloshered something. It could be a 7/7.
Ancestral Spirit, I guess, just helps him give him something stickied. I think Zalae is playing the Mutate version, so if he does end up playing the Flesh Shaper and evolves into, you know, a Tyrion, then he can use Ancestral Spirit in that spot. Alternatively, just use Ancestral Spirit to keep his board resilient.
I wonder how much he wants to respect these snip snaps. It takes a lot of resources to kill them. It takes damage from hand as well as multiple attacks on board to get rid of the 1/1s.
I want to go face with everything here.
Yeah, that was my first instinct as well. But there's also, you can kill the big one and then go face with everything, so that way Warpath kills Saiyan's board as well.
Okay, I like that. It's a good compromise.
Yeah. So it's not a massive investment into the snip snaps, which I was worried about. I didn't want to make attacks into these 1/1s. If you see second brawl, you're saying to yourself, okay, well, that's the second brawl down. That's fine.
I like it.
He's more likely to win this way, but sure, most of your board's going to die anyway. If Warpath comes out, you want to make sure that you're not getting massively punished from it, which Saiyan would still have a 4/2 on board, 4/2 snip snap on board, which not a massive punish, but still just kind of annoying to deal with for Zalae. So I like this middle ground. Like you said, nice compromise. And chips off much of the armor total. He was up to 16 armor, now down all the way to 5.
Yeah, this is also back into the same boat as before, where Saiyan sees 2 spells generated from the Ethereal Lackey and has to respect the threat of a Stormbringer now on top of Bloodlust because he doesn't have the Brawl anymore.
Yeah.
So if a big board of reasonable sized legendary minions are around the 5/5 stat line, whoa.
Those bombs came flying at our face. No minions killed off
Yeah,
from the Dinomatic.
that was some bad dinos. I wonder if Saiyan wants to just put in other taunts in the way. Okay, just gonna throw in the Ziliax, remove every minion possible because of the threat of board-based spells. Shudder Walk in the hand, and this is starting to look like Zalae might win off the sheer value plan.
Yeah, it's insane.
Now he has the weaponized Wasp to clear the 6/6, and he's gonna be super far ahead on board, and he can still do things like Evil Cable Rat or Sludge Slurpers, and then cement his board with Soul of the Forest. Because that was a board, if in my mind, if I was the Warrior player, would have been heavily considered using Warpath because of the threat of the spells that were generated.
Yep.
So I feel like Zalae can make that soft read that either Saiyan's holding onto Warpath and baiting him, or he doesn't have it. And it's likely that he doesn't have it.
And it's not like Soul of Force is this massive resource that you want to save for the perfect time, right? It's a spell that you generate off of a card that was generated. So it's not even a card that you would put in your deck. So you can just throw it out, and it is another Warpath check.
Yes.
So Zalae can be pretty confident if he plays Soul of Murlocs here. And no Warpath comes out, that there's none in hand, and he can feel free to react accordingly. So I wouldn't mind that. But maybe he's just okay with the status quo. Looks like he did get the Soul of the Murloc off. Yep.
He did, but did he get the trade into the Snip Snap?
Yep.
He did as well.
Still looking for Dr. Boom.
Just looking for Dr. Boom, looking for ways to remove the board. This is starting to get into critical territory for Saiyan. Of course, we know that Zalae's damage isn't Bloodlust, it's Kobold Lackey and Weaponized Wasp, which totals 10 damage, with the added benefit of whatever the Sludge Slurper gets. Both Life Drinkers have been used, though, which is nice. And if Zalae's hand's been tracked by Sand, he knows that there's still one more Wasp, so he's accounting for it.
Yep.
Omega Defender is just more efficient taunt stats if you are going for stats only. Violet Warden like only really applies to Warpath, and even then he doesn't really need it. Ends up choosing the Violet Warden instead. Might be because it's the more mana efficient play right now.
Leaving this big of a board up though is scary.
Zalae sits up. Thinking very heavily. So with 14 life of taunt in the way plus 26, it's unlikely that Zalae has lethal in this spot. Weaponized Wasp on minions. This is his last Wasp, I believe.
Yep.
So it's a full board clear. Zalae can trade and play a minion.
Probably Sludge Slurper in this case.
Yeah, I definitely want to invest more into the Battlecry pool. In fact, I'd probably want to dump a lot of my hand as well, because Shudderwalk is going to fill up your hand.
He still has a lot of time before he needs to be playing Shudderwalk. Also, the one thing that I want to do here is make sure to hold on to a Lackey to play with Shudderwalk, just so your Weaponized Wasps actually activate.
Right.
You can usually hold on to like Witchy Lackey. Maybe not Witchy Lackey, considering he still has a Flesh Shaper. But something that doesn't have a massive impact on damage.
Sticky board, TJ.
Oh yeah.
So sticky.
And finally,
So
Dr.
bored.
Boom picked up.
12 damage on board, plus the Shield Sand removes, or Shield Sand will remove 3 damage if he goes for that.
There was a part of me that didn't want to play Shield Slam, if only because it would make Zalae not be able to play a minion.
Hold on here. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. 12 damage on board. Plus the 4 from the Kobold Lackey is 16. He doesn't have enough board space. Yeah. That being said, Bog Sloshing is still very good in this position, and I feel like Saiyan is going to get bursted out of the game from this point on. Enough damage has been dealt.
Yeah, there is a guaranteed 6 damage loaded up into Shudderwalk with both Light Drinkers.
You're right.
So if need be, he could always use that as a finisher. And right now, Saiyan is at 6.
Yep.
So with a full board, even if he manages to clear this board, he's dead. Needs to clear the board and gain life. And even then, that may not be enough.
Yeah, I forgot that Wasp was on the board. I was looking at all the Murlocs. That
Yeah.
extra 2 damage is very relevant.
Yeah. These Town Criers don't do anything. Ziliax has been played as well as both Restless Mummies.
Echobot is a 3/8. Gets in the way. You can even use Eternium Rover to gain a little bit extra life.
Yep. And Microbots to clean up a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Microbots clean off 3 power off the board, at the very least.
Face me, you ridiculous rust bucket.
I think I trade the 1/1 into the 3/3 and 1/3 into the 1/1. An alternative is to remove, like a mind control tag and then just kill off the soul of the Murloc. That's fine too.
And the Lackey as the last one.
Yes. It's Blast Shield.
So that's something.
Is this guaranteed lethal though, because you just push past the taunts and you go face, and then it's 6 damage from the Shutterwalk?
Yes.
Unless Shutterwalk hits the Eternium Rover?
No, it's guaranteed.
Okay.
You would Mogu Flesh Shaper into the 3/5. The 2/2s go in there. The 3/2 goes into the Frightened Flunky. 7/7 goes face. And then Shutterwalk is a guaranteed 6.
Yes.
So even if Eternium Rover gained 2 health, which would be Sandstorm Elemental plus a Kobold Lackey, it'd still be 6 damage to face.
We also forgot that there was a Ancestral Spirit played.
Yeah, Ancestral Spirit played on the Mogu Flesh Shaper, which means that it can just come back into attack. So it was guaranteed lethal in multiple ways for Zalae. With Shutterwalk, or just with those board trades and the 7/7 hitting face, because of the Ancestral Spirit. So good on Zalae for remembering that. I don't think there was a way that Shutterwalk went wrong.
I don't think so either.
He puts it down to 1 with the 7 attack. It's a guaranteed 6 damage, and the Eternium Rover can gain 4 max.
Right.
So
I think the only way it could go absolutely disastrously is based off the pure number of weaponized wasps he played. If it all hit
there was
himself.
no Lackey on board, so the weaponized wasp wouldn't even trigger.
There you go.
So multiple ways.
Yeah, multiple paths to victory.
Multiple paths to victory. And that's just kind of an homage to the matchup, right? Because Zalae didn't even have to play Shutterwalk and still just overwhelmed him. And he had even more Lackey generation left in his hand with Sludge Slurper, had Evil Cable Rat still left in his deck, and Evil Totem. Just way too much value, way too much damage.
Yeah.
Saiyan couldn't keep up.
All roads led to El Salvador.
Yeah, that's right. As the saying goes.
We're going to check in with Zalae momentarily. His first win in Grandmasters Season 2. And it was against a player that was undefeated. Saiyan takes his first loss.
Muzzy took his first loss
Muzzy took
yesterday
his
as
first
well.
loss. But, I mean, that's going to happen. Even if you go like a single week 2-0 and then you're just splitting games 1-1, that was good enough to make playoffs last season because of the nature of like one player dominating a lot.
Even
and
if
the
you
rest
went,
of the players kind of having mediocre.
Even if you went 0-2 and then 1-1 split for the rest of the season, that was good enough to make playoffs in Division A.
Yeah.
So
that was because Frozen just cleaned up everybody and was taking wins off of pretty much everyone that he went up against. So yeah, not really bad whatsoever for Saiyan, who has a 1-1 week, and we'll check in with Zalae momentarily if we get his interview up.
yeah, it was the Omni Slash versus Radiance past couple days. Firebat beat Muzzy and Zalae beat Saiyan.
Yeah, Omni Slash taking out Radiance.
Team battle.
It's a team battle, yeah. It's kind of like a 2v2.
Yeah. We actually don't have like that. I guess we have a lot of teams represented, but there's big chunks of certain teams. There's the chunk of Radiance, chunk of Omni Slash, chunk of Genji, which is kind of interesting to see.
The Lazarus boys.
Yep, Lazarus as well. So we have more than half the players in America's Grandmasters are split across 4 organizations.
Yeah, and then there's the Tempo boys too.
Oh yeah.
We'll go ahead and check in with Zalae, by the way, who's ready. We don't want to keep him waiting too long. Zalae, can you hear us?
I can hear you. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Big smile on your face. First win of the season. How you feeling?
I mean, it's nice to win one once in a while. I kind of forgot what that was like for a while. It's like I remember winning on ladder, sure, no problem, but in GM, everything's different. You know, suddenly things just don't go my way.
What do you
today?
think? Well, yeah, not today. What do you think's been the main cause of that? Do you feel like your lineup? Do you feel like your play? Do you feel like it's just kind of the luck of the draw?
You know, I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combination of factors. And so it's tough to pin it on just one thing. Like definitely, you know, frankly, I'm just not as motivated to win at Hearthstone as I used to be years ago. And like I try my best to do like a good, honest effort. But when you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it, and that makes it harder. And so like I try to force myself to try and prepare, and I do some of that. And like I feel like my preparation's decent, but not the best. I feel like my decisions in game are decent, but not the best. My RNG decent, but not the best. And you know, today things went differently for me. That was nice.
Do you feel like the win, or rather maybe conversely, do you feel like the losses added to that lack of motivation? Like, all right, well, I'm losing. It feels like there's not much point to try. Or does it motivate you more because you're like, I don't really want to keep losing here. I want to start winning.
The losses motivate me more to win, for sure. For sure.
Got it. Well, that's great. That's definitely the right
I don't like
trend.
to give up, you know?
Certainly not. Certainly not. Neither. I mean, I think that's translated by the fact that you still have the couch. You're not giving up the couch anytime soon, Zalae. Is that a permanent fixture? over at
I
your
would
place?
love to give it up. You know, I got sciatica. It's like a pinched nerve, so it's uncomfortable to sit for long periods of time, and it's getting better. But the couch is my coping mechanism, so I can still work. Like I need to be lying down a lot and icing it a lot, so that it gets better instead of worse.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's good to hear from you directly because we were like, we heard about it, but we hadn't heard it directly from you. But now that we have you on camera, it's good to hear about that. Talk to us a little bit about Quest Shaman. You know, last week wasn't really working out too much. This week seemed like you were just doing really well and getting in the groove. Any thoughts on this deck? Some people are counting it the best deck in the metagame.
I mean, Quest Shaman, best Shaman. I've been saying it since before the set was even fully revealed.
So its predictions are finally coming true. The prophet Zalae has spoken.
Thank you. Feels nice to be acknowledged here and there.
DJ, anything you got for Zalae?
I think Ike, was it yesterday, posted a new Shaman list on Twitter yesterday.
Oh, his control shaman?
The control Shaman. Do you have any thoughts on that version, and do you see any evolutions coming to Shaman anytime soon?
You know, Ike likes to post those spicy meme decks. They're always a lot of fun, and they can always win some games. I do want to say one thing that was different about today is I made like kind of a slight change in my prep that really worked out for me, which is you guys remember there was a popular tweet a while back of if you ask these Hearthstone streamers, like if you could copy their homework, what would they say? Right? You guys remember that?
Yes.
So there was, yeah. So my answer in that, and it was funny because it was dead on, was my answer was bold of you to assume I did my homework. Now, you know, as my score gets worse, my motivation to do my homework goes up. And one thing I did differently was I kind of reached out to a friend that I've noticed does a pretty good job of preparing for herself. And so I kind of took her advice, and the pick bans went really well for me against Saiyan. With him banning my warrior and me banning his warlock, that whole thing just went great for me.
Interesting. All right. Well, we don't want you to have to give away too much information there, but I'm assuming you're talking about Patra, right?
Well, there's so many other GMs that are female I could be referring to.
Fair enough.
Fair
We're not going to
point.
assume anything. That's a great point to exit the interview. Thank you so much, Zalae. Congrats on your win, and we'll see you back next week.
Thanks.
All right, Team Omni Slash sticking together. It really was a team battle.
Good to see. Good to see.
Yeah, and Patrick got her first win this season as well. So
Yeah.
congrats to her.
It's
It's hard fought. There's a lot of winless players in GM right now.
They're all in the up and up. And keep in mind, in Season 1, I'm pretty sure every single Omni Slash player finished in last place or second to last place.
Bottom two.
Bottom two.
Yeah.
So
They were candidates for relegation if that were the season.
and I'm sure they
relegated.
don't want to have that same fate this season because relegation is in effect. And I know there's a lot of Omni Slash Omni Stone fans out there that want to see them succeed and not be relegated and watch them next year in Hearthstone Grandmasters. So good to see them picking up wins and good to see sticking together and doing their homework.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, we'll see how that ends up panning out. We'll see which casters get relegated. Ooh. Bottom two casters per region get relegated.
That's all of them. Not last season.
Finally,
though.
the fans. You said the fans don't get what they want.
Last season,
There you go.
there was like 5 casters per region because of all the mix-ups that we had and Nathan's wedding, which was a big one. We all left pretty much. So I hope that's not the case this season, Dan.
Well, I think a couple players who can echo that sentiment. Frozen and Race, 2 players that made it to the playoffs, but fell just a little bit short. Let's see how their head-to-head is going to line up right after we get through this video. Check it out.